Welcome to the Slacking Off Show, the show that you're listening to when you should be doing something else. I'm your host, Nathan Wind, and I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. JP Gomez.
Hey, what's up? I don't know if anyone's noticed, but we have a certain someone not here today.
Yeah, Cameron, unfortunately, is up in bed. He had 6 wisdom teeth pulled out. So
6 wisdom teeth.
Yeah, 6 of them.
That's a crazy amount of wisdom teeth.
Oh, I know.
Because it's like, I remember when he told me this, he was like, he has to get his wisdom teeth removed. And I was like, okay. Because most people either don't have the time to get their wisdom teeth, or like when they're young, their parents couldn't afford the surgery to get those removed or something like that. I was surprised when he mentioned that it was 6 wisdom teeth.
Right, exactly. I'm like, I've never heard of somebody getting 6 of them removed, and he thought he was going to work the next day. And
or even having 6 of them, period, because usually it's like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I had like 2, and then I was back up and running within a couple of hours, but not him, not right now. So Cameron will not be joining us today, unfortunately. But, we saw Detective Pikachu. We went out, we watched that just the other day, and we're about to give you our review for it. So full spoiler warning up ahead. This is your only warning. So, what's your prior experience with Pokemon before going into this movie here?
My prior experience with Pokemon, oh god, it was a long time ago. But I think my experience with Pokemon was, I think it was right around the time when Pokemon became a big hit in the U.S. when everything just kind of came out all at once. You had the games, you had the anime, you had all the trading card stuff. I wasn't too into the trading card stuff, and I wasn't too into the games either because I didn't have a Game Boy at the time.
Oh yeah.
But I did watch the anime quite a bit when I was younger.
Okay, yeah, no, I remember. I think I was like 5 at the time. I had a Game Boy Pocket, and I only had one game. And my parents told me that I apparently found a stuffed Pikachu at a store, really wanted it, and then found out they had a Pokemon Yellow version on the store shelves. And I flipped out, so they bought me Pokemon Yellow version, and they have since claimed that was their biggest mistake because I have been a pretty big fan ever since.
I'm sure my parents feel the same way too.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we would never knew we were going to spend this much money.
Because as soon as they gave me a Game Boy, it was kind of over at that point. I was just like obsessed with getting like all the toys and that sort of thing. Just like going to, because I lived in New York at the time, they had the Pokemon Center.
Oh,
you remember that place?
I'm so jealous.
They had that place in Manhattan, so I was just like, trying to scrounge up as much change as I could to get to the subway ride there. And, it was pretty fucking crazy back then because, keep in mind, I was, like, little, and you saw these giant, like, was it Lapras plushies that were as big as I was? And I wanted to get one of those, but they cost, like, $200.
Oh, my goodness.
I remember seeing an Entei one that was just, like...
Yo.
That was big, but, like, imagine... like a 5 or 6 year old being like, I don't know, 3 feet, and it was just like up to my shoulder levels back then.
To be young again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always wanted to go to the Pokemon centers in New York, but I never got the chance to before I think they closed it down. And
they remodeled it into just like a general Nintendo thing.
Yeah, which you can still go to today. It's pretty cool, but it's not as cool as a whole Pokemon Center.
No, I've been to like the Nintendo store a couple times afterwards, and I was just like, yeah, it's pretty neat to see like all the Mario type stuff, but like it doesn't seem quite as dedicated because like, okay, like they have a bunch of like Nintendo themed paraphernalia and stuff like that because they have like statues of like Donkey Kong and that sort of thing, and that stuff is cool. It just didn't seem as focused as being an entire store of Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean it's still cool, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like it would have been, especially now that there's Pokemon stuff everywhere. I mean, we got Mewtwo mugs, we got some Amiibo, we got plush. There's Pokemon stuff literally everywhere right now. I think a whole dedicated store would be really neat to visit.
I mean, there are, just not in the U.S.
Oh, that's right. Don't they have some in Japan, I think?
They have at least 8 of them in Japan.
Yeah, at least 8. And
then one in, like, Singapore and South Korea. So it's big enough there that they can... they feel like they have a good enough profit to keep those businesses open.
I guess.
I guess so. Yeah.
With all these plushies and new merch and movies, Pokemon the first movie coming back out later this year. There's a lot of hype.
Did you see that in theaters?
Back in the day, yeah, I saw the original Pokemon the first movie in theaters, but I never got this trading card. Everybody walked out with like this Mewtwo card from the movies.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And
But it's
I
like a
never got
special
it.
Mew card. There was like hieroglyphs and stuff.
I think that was from 2000, but there was
I
like
think
a
it was 1999.
Mewtwo card I think they gave out. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No,
Ladies and gentlemen,
it
let
was
us know in the comments.
It was definitely a Mew card. I
It was?
remember. It was like cool to look at, but it was kind of at the same time worthless because you can't read anything. Like there was no English in it. It's just like made up symbols and stuff. So it was just like
I feel like we have one somewhere in this house.
you
haven't put it through the
you might
washing
have kept
machine.
one either here or maybe in like your parents' place or something like that.
Maybe it's worth something. We could sell it.
We'll see.
Yeah, right. But anyways, so you know we've got a long history with the franchise. We still play the games regularly today.
Yeah, we still keep up.
Yeah, I mean I've kind of drifted off a little bit more just with the last gen Sun and Moon is kind of where I wasn't as hardcore as I used to be. But we used to play competitively, and we've enjoyed the franchise for a long time. So that's why this movie was such a surprise to find that they went the way they did with this movie. They adapted a video game for the 3DS into a whole movie. Like, did you play the game? I personally didn't. I kind of want to, but I kind of am afraid.
Like I've heard about this game for a while now, but it just kind of came and went, to my knowledge. I think part of it is because it was on the 3DS at a time when the Switch was, taking off.
Yeah, I
So
think
most
it did come
people-
out shortly after the Switch did.
So most people just kind of forgot about it.
Not to mention, like $40 for a Detective Pikachu game is kind of like, I don't know if I would spend my $40 on a Pokemon spinoff like that.
Not really.
It must have done well enough to make it a movie out of it. Either that, or they just felt that confident about the story.
I guess they were.
Well, they did a tech demo a couple of years back for the Detective Pikachu video game, where they motion capped actors and they put it onto Pikachu. And they showed this like demo test footage somewhere at some conference in Japan. It was weird. It was really creepy. I'm sure you can still find it somewhere on YouTube, but that did not inspire hope when I had heard that they were going to have Pikachu talk in a game.
No.
But oh well, it is what it is. So we don't really know if this follows the story of the video game or not. Kind of hope it does. It's not a terrible tale if it does follow that story. But what did you think of these character designs? Pokemon's traditionally this very Japanese animated style, cartoonish flavor, and we were treated to some very cool, realistic designs in this movie. I think some of them were hit or miss.
You thought some of them were hit or miss?
Yeah, I think some of them were.
Which ones did you think were miss?
Apom, especially.
Mm.
I thought that was really. I mean, Apom's like this purple monkey thing with a extra hand on its tail. I think it's already kind of creepy, but seeing it in like real life, with fur and these abstract monkey-like proportions, I don't know. I think it was kind of faithful to the original character, but it looked a little too creepy and not weird enough.
I think it's the face more than anything.
Yes, that's a great way of narrowing it down. That definitely kind of weirded me out a little
Like
bit.
that thing is always going to be a hard sell, just period. Because like if you look at the actual, like what it's supposed to look like, I'll probably like throw it up or something. It has this like smile and has these big eyes. That's like, okay, it looks cute enough in like just 2D animated form, but like converting it to 3D where it's supposed to have depth and texture, like it's supposed to have actual skin or something. That's the part that made people concerned about just this whole idea in general, like the idea of adapting these abstract things into things that are supposed to have or at least resemble having some sort of skin or have some sort of organs. Like, oh, the eyes are actually like eyeballs. Like, oh, okay, that's a weird like uncanny valley thing. But I think for the most part they actually did a good job with that.
Yeah, there are just a few sore spots to me that kind of like were, but for the most part, I totally bought it. And I don't know about you, but in the opening scenes where they're just kind of showing the establishing shots of the world and how Pokemon live in it, I was just like, God, why isn't this my life? Like, why can't I live there? I wanted to be there, you know, like it was almost like a dream come true just seeing those first few scenes, you know, knowing I grew up wanting to do this.
Right. and I wouldn't say it's like the opening scene though, because you had that previous scene beforehand where it's more like a regular kind of like suburban type of place. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Yeah.
Where it was establishing just kind of how Pokemon works in general for like a brief moment. Like the whole throwing the ball to catch a Pokemon.
Oh yeah,
type of thing.
I remember that now. Yeah, it's just at least the general intro kind of gave me that.
Yeah.
That vibe. But correct me if I'm wrong. Did the film kind of open up almost with like what was a nice homage to the first movie with Mewtwo?
It opened up. I think it actually. You know what? I remember it opening up with that. Yeah. Because the start of the movie was that you see Mewtwo in this containment chamber, and then you see something like kind of like a car chase, where it's like someone in a car is like trying to get away from this facility, and then somehow you don't really see it, but Mewtwo breaks out, and then starts chasing after it. Cut to the car being hit by some sort of blast, and then it tumbles over a bridge, and that's the last you ever see of that for a while.
Yeah, like it's obviously implied that whoever was died in the crash and that Mewtwo was the one that
was responsible for that.
Yeah. I mean, but visually it was kind of a cool opening to see him, like the way he took off, not only seeing like a fan favorite Pokemon in this realistic style, but when he flew, how he had that like trail behind him. I thought they did some neat visual stuff like that at the very beginning to just kind of, you know, set the mood for how powerful this character could be in a way.
I think it was less of that, but more of just like the explosion and the immediate chaos that ensued from him breaking out. That sold the idea that he was powerful more than that. That was more of like, I guess you could say, a visual sort of representation. Not representation, but like it stood out from the entire scene because you have this sort of moving trail of light. Yeah, but I guess that works to demonstrate how much power he has.
Well, it was that whole scene kind of reminded me of the beginning of Pokemon the first movie, which, as we talked about, is getting remade this year, but where Mewtwo breaks out of like the containment chamber that he was created in, and when they showed that whole scene, I was all like, whoa. Okay, so we're going there. We're gonna open this movie up with the creation of Mewtwo in like live action, and that was an unexpected beginning. But then, you know, it goes back to like the more peaceful establishing shot where we have our lead character Tim and his buddy out trying to catch a Pokemon. His buddy's trying to get him to catch his first Pokemon because he works at an insurance company and he doesn't have a Pokemon for whatever reason. I don't think we ever find out, do we?
No. It's interesting that you say that because the movie starts out, like you said, with Tim and his friend persuading him to catch a Pokemon, to catch his Cubone, and it just didn't work out very well, which it validates like his whole opinion at the beginning that he doesn't really like being a Pokemon trainer, or he doesn't seem to like Pokemon in general. And I thought that was very interesting that they established that sort of thing, I guess, to sort of show or to set up this whole buddy cop comedy that they were playing later in the movie.
Yeah, and I definitely got that vibe. And I wish we had found out a little more about why he is that way, you know? I'm sitting here and I'm like, I would kill to be in your world right now.
I feel like the flashback scenes are supposed to imply that's why he hates Pokemon. But I don't know if... I couldn't quite catch like the reasoning why. I don't know if they explained it.
I don't think they ever did.
No, there was like some sort of implication that his mother died from something, and I guess that's the reason why he doesn't really like Pokemon. But I never really... I don't think they ever elaborated on that. Maybe I just missed something. Maybe I need to rewatch a movie or something.
Yeah, we might have just missed something small, but I mean, the main thing that kind of like motivates him to get out of his comfort zone is when I think it was in the newspaper, right? That he reads that.
No, he got a call from the police.
It was, yeah, that's right. It was a call from the police that his dad had been killed in an accident.
Because he was the same person that was in that car in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And he has to go to. I think this was the part where I was talking with the waiter who was getting us food, so I didn't quite catch how he got the ticket to get to, what was it, Rhyme City?
Rhyme City was the name of the location. I think he just bought the ticket because the police gave him the call, and he was like, "Oh, I have to go see what happened to my dad," because he didn't quite know it yet, so he had to take the train to go to Rhyme City. So I think he just bought the ticket.
Okay, yeah, because the waiter was talking to me during that point. I didn't catch it. Next thing I knew, I just saw him on the train where he's just licked by this licky tongue, just chilling there, and I was like,
that
whoa.
was the first establishing shot of how weird these creatures are.
Oh my gosh!
And I imagine if you're not into Pokemon at all, or even just have a cursory interest in Pokemon, like you just like Pikachu and that's it. What a way to go!
Yeah.
What a first impression, because he had this thing, and the tongue just flops, and you could hear the thud off screen. And I don't even know why this Lick Tongue picked Tim of all people, but I guess movie stuff. But then he just like licks him,
just like right up on the face, just like
right in the face,
right there.
And they actually credit to the special effects team, because they actually had the oncoming saliva coming from that.
Oh, it was nasty.
It was pretty gross. It's a good thing you got your food right at that point.
Oh yeah.
What'd you get, by the way?
I just had a generic burger and fries.
Oh, okay.
Pretzel bites and some dessert. Wow, I had a lot, and a Long Island.
Oh, well, that's a lot.
Makes any movie better.
Mm-hmm.
No, that licky tongue scene was really funny. That kind of set the tone. But the moment he gets off the train, that's when we're really treated to like a visual spectacle.
The moment when he gets into Rhyme City.
Yeah, when he gets off the train in Rhyme City, and they just show all these establishing shots of a city where people and Pokemon live together. There's no battling. There's no training. They're treated almost as equals. And there's just Pokemon everywhere.
Up the wazoo.
Yeah, like it's ridiculous. I was just sitting there like drooling. I was like, whoa, this is ridiculous. You see some of them doing like jobs that benefit society, like Machamp directing traffic.
Yeah, like that was definitely one of the points of the movie where I thought that it was starting to go to places. Well, it literally went to places, but I thought it was like, in terms of the quality of the movie, I thought it was actually like getting to. It started looking promising, I guess you could say, because not only do you see these Pokemon in live action, but you actually get to see them doing things. Like it's not just they're over in the corner and it's doing things independently of anything else. Like they just superimpose the CGI character onto a shot. Like you actually see them doing things.
Yeah,
like
they're integrated so well.
They're the center of some of these shots sometimes, and so you can see them actually, like you said, doing things that seems kind of natural. You have the Snorlax sleeping in the middle of the train, and then Machamp, or not train, in the middle of the street, and then Machamp tried to direct traffic.
Which is really funny because he's got 4 arms.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, props to the person who looked at him and was like, you know what? Machamp would be the best at directing 4-way stops because he could just go like, nope, yep, go.
Yeah, he would just like use all 4 of his hands to like stop this 4-way traffic, but then have the one hand go like this.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's genius. And it was funny. I laughed out loud at that part because it took me by surprise.
Yeah, and then you had like all these, like I saw a Trico just kind of like clinging onto the walls. It's like, yeah, that makes sense because he's a gecko for all intents and purposes. And it's like, okay, that's really good. But one of the things that I thought was really good about that moment was that it kind of demonstrated that the directors and the writers actually cared about Pokemon.
This is a good point. Yeah.
Because usually when most people talk about Pokemon, it's usually the first 150. And so I figured when they were going to do a Pokemon adaptation, it's going to be mostly just the first 150. and because people are gonna like it because it was their childhood,
Mm-hmm.
or people thought, well, it's the most marketable aspect,
Yeah.
or the most marketable Pokemon. But like the director and the writer actually seem to care about Pokemon in general, to the point where they figured they'll just take the Pokemon that actually makes the most sense, rather than just kind of like fitting the first 150 into some context that doesn't really make sense.
I'm really glad they did that too, because I didn't really realize it until you pointed it out just then. But you're right. That was kind of the moment where I think in my head too, it clicked, and I was like, "Oh, you people like really cared. Like you took
Like
the
you
time.
liked Pokemon. You didn't like your childhood involving Pokemon. You liked Pokemon.
You like it, and you're gonna treat it well,
Mm-hmm.
unlike some other movies involving animals that have had trailers come out lately.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to really respect and like the source material.
Mm-hmm.
And it really showed with that.
Like there was a brief shot where you see a bunch of Loudred making noise, and I think if it was dictated by someone who didn't actually care about Pokemon that much, they would just try to cram some other Pokemon in there where it wouldn't fit. But like, if you're gonna use a scene that's supposed to imply sound, why not go with the one Pokemon that makes sound, whose entire thing is all about making sound?
Yeah, use them as a boombox.
Yeah, like, it makes so much sense, and that's what
really
made
does.
it work so well.
And it's everywhere.
Yeah,
It's everywhere in the movie.
yeah.
And it does put a smile on my face
Mm-hmm.
just seeing how well and how much they integrated things.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the coffee sign outside of the coffee shop that shows up later. It's a knock towel that just says like coffee right here.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like they choose the right Pokemon for their job, essentially.
They really did. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the supporting cast and kind of a little bit more about the story. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Slacking Off Show's review of Detective Pikachu. I'm still joined by Mr. JP Gomez, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the story and the supporting cast that kind of comes along here.
We're not going to talk about the main cast?
Well, main cast included with that. So the main character, Tim, once he gets to the city and we are treated that wonderful establishing shot of all the Pokemon and how they live with the humans, he gets into this apartment complex, and he's played by Justice Smith. And it's like shortly after that he's introduced to the other like supporting female lead, Lucy Stevens, played by Catherine Newton, and her Psyduck. And she just immediately starts grilling him about questions relating to his dad's death. The police have basically told him, "Hey, look, kid, it was an accident. It's unfortunate. Here's the keys to his apartment. Good luck." And he's then just getting grilled by this girl who's about his age, and you kind of get the sense there's more going on here than what we expect. What it seems like. What do you kind of think of her introduction?
Okay, so I want to talk about what happened like before that, in between, because there's this sort of slower paced moment where Tim is talking to the lieutenant.
Oh, you're
played
right.
by Ken Watanabe. I think the character's name is Lieutenant Yoshida or something like that. Anyway, yeah, he was talking with him about the whole accident, about the fact that his father may have been killed, and he was talking to him about, oh, why don't you have a Pokemon with you? And your father talked so much about you, and he was a Pokemon trainer too, and like all that sort of stuff to establish his dad. And Tim's rebuttal to that is that he does not want to be a Pokemon trainer or even have a Pokemon. And I thought that was interesting to show this sort of, I guess, like conflict, because it's a sort of expectation that Tim's had because of his father. But the fact that he doesn't like Pokemon in a world full of Pokemon, like that, there's that sort of conflict going on right there, and this sort of shows that, like, even though he probably was badgered a lot about not wanting to have Pokemon, probably by his dad and stuff like that, but there's still the fact that he has to take his dad's stuff from his apartment, and like there's a sort of slow moment to that sort of thing, realizing that he lost his dad, and he probably lost his one connection.
You also saw that the police lieutenant was also trying to like reach out to him. Hey, I'll give you a ride over to this place, and he was just like adamantly
he was really insistent that the lieutenant didn't come with him.
Yeah,
because there's just something really personal about that, because like I said, it's his father, and probably like the one real emotional connection he had to Pokemon.
I'm really glad you brought up that scene because I forgot. I didn't really think about how important it was until you started talking about it, and it really is.
Or at least I assumed it was important.
No, I think it was very, very important because you kind of get that, like you just said, it established that his father was, really into Pokemon. The guy was even talking about how, you want to be a Pokemon trainer, blah, 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 blah. And he was just like, no, just trying to shut him down immediately. And you kind of get the sense that the kid's definitely a loner. Which I think is even further emphasized by the next scene, the one I was just talking about, where he's getting grilled by, I think it was Lucy.
So going back to her, that was the point where the whole plot of the movie started to kick in, because it was mostly just him, just kind of like it's mostly just kind of this personal type of emotional thing. But this is where the greater plot sort of kicks in with Lucy, who kind of came across as a very exaggerated kind of character.
Oh, for sure. And way over her head, trying to make a recording on, I think it was like her iPhone. She was clearly unprepared for this and just like, hey, I've been waiting for you to open this mailbox. I've been waiting for somebody to open this mailbox. You did it. Tell me, who are you? What do you know?
Although I do think you kind of underplayed her tone a little bit, because she was trying to be like this big shot, like saying, "Hey, you're gonna give me the scoop," like trying to play this big shot reporter.
You gotta give me a story. I smell a story.
And I thought for such a somber and kind of serious tone the whole movie had at that point, that just kind of like came in like a battering ram, like her exaggerated emotions and movements. Coming down the stairs and then just like talking in that sort of way. I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that she's accompanied by a Psyduck of all Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, boy, I'm surprised you don't get a headache just from listening to this girl try and make a plan. He just kind of like blows her off and is like, yeah, whatever. And he just goes upstairs, tells her off, and just starts looking around the apartment. And, I mean, from there, you kind of get the sense that his dad really did love him, because it's implied, I think, that he never really visits his dad or anything like that. And yet his dad has a room ready for him in case he ever stops by. And I mean, the guy's like 21-ish, at least. And he's got like a Pokemon decked out room because he loved them as a kid, and his own office and all of that. He starts looking for evidence, and he comes across this weird vial.
Oh, right.
I think they referred to it later as like the R serum or something. And of course, what do you do with a weird vial? You open it up.
Like an idiot.
Yeah, why not? This weird purple chemical swirling around could be fine. So he cracks it open. It's this gas. He starts coughing. And the gas goes out the window and is inhaled by these Apom. Chilling outside, climbing up walls, doing whatever Apom do. And they just start going berserk and start attacking him. And that was the point where I was just like, oh, this is a little weird.
Weird in what way?
Well, just seeing the designs. You remember how I mentioned earlier how I thought the Apom were a little one of the creepier ones?
Yeah.
Seeing him go nuts was also a little creepy. But did he meet Pikachu before this?
Like, after he opened the vial like an idiot, I guess, because they couldn't find a better way to establish that sort of major plot device for this movie, because that's one of the biggest things about this movie, the chemical. And I think in between that and the Apom attacking is when he meets Pikachu.
That's right. Yeah, it was. And he just views Pikachu immediately as this like rodent in the house. He wasn't sure what it was. He's got a stapler. He's trying to use it as a weapon. It's really corny, really lame. But then Pikachu just kind of comes up and is like, hey, kid, I know you don't understand me, Put the stapler down, or I will electrocute you. And it's just Ryan Reynolds' voice.
It's Deadpool voicing
coming
Pikachu.
out of Pikachu.
Yeah. As soon as Pikachu shows up, all that sort of character development, that's just kind of like pushed off to the side, you know?
Yeah, because you immediately are like, oh, it's Deadpool.
It's Deadpool, and also this movie is going to turn into something completely different. Or it's going to take a completely different tone, because you have this talking Pikachu, and then Justice Smith freaking out because he's talking to a Pikachu, and then immediately after, these Apoms start attacking them, and then it just becomes a big chase scene.
Yeah, it's this giant chase scene. They're like hauling ass over these buildings and whatnot. Pikachu's just like, hey, man, you got to help me. This is my apartment, blah, 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 blah. During the chase scene, he's like, oh, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. The Apom are crazy. And then at the very end of the scene, when they both escape, he's just like, hey, are you going to help me find, what was his father's name? Harry?
Harry, yeah, Harry Goodman.
Harry, yeah, he's like, I'm a detective. I'm a Pikachu, and I'm a detective. I lost my memories, but I know I'm a detective. And this poor kid's got to think he's on drugs, because he's
I think that's what everyone else thought of him.
Yeah, because he's going up to these citizens, and he's like, hey, you understand him, right? And he's pointing to Pikachu. Pikachu's like, Pika, Pika, Pika. And they're like, oh, he's so cute. Yeah, they don't understand me, kid. So for whatever reason, he can understand this Pikachu. Nobody else can, and it drives him nuts.
I assumed it was like because of the chemical, because, you know, you had this weird thing that has some very bizarre effects on at least the Pokemon. So I figured that, like, if it affects humans, you know, it could probably do some stuff like understanding Pokemon like Pikachu.
Yeah, I could totally buy that.
I don't know. It has some neurological thing with Pokemon, so I just assumed that it might have some neurological thing with humans. No, it just makes them cough.
So that from there, we're just treated to, like, tons of, like, expositional dialogue. You find out that this Ryan Reynolds Pikachu is addicted to coffee.
He's addicted to coffee. He doesn't know where he came from. He doesn't use any electricity. He doesn't know how.
Which kind of blew my mind for that movie. I was like, what do you mean you don't know how to attack? I'm like, you're Pikachu. Come on, man. You've been doing this a while, right? Amnesia or not, this should be like instinct.
Right.
But apparently not. And how did they end up in like some fight arena?
Oh, yeah, because they were trying to figure out, because the Pikachu established that Harry might not be dead after all, and that he might still be alive, because he had the hat.
Oh, that's right. The hat had his name in it.
And so Tim figured that, okay, well, if this is his Pikachu, then he might not be dead after all, because his Pikachu was in that same accident. So they just kind of try to find clues, try to find Lucy, who was looking for this whole, who was investigating this whole thing a lot longer than he was. And so they made up with her. That's where they establish two major characters in that movie, by the way.
It's the villain, the news guy, right? What was his name?
I remember the one guy. I think it was like something Clifford.
It was like Harriet Clifford or something.
Harry Clifford or something like that. There's this big CEO type person who like essentially has the city government and the police like under his thumb because of, you know, paycheck and all that. And his son, who I forget the name, but he's a major owner of this particular news station, and she's interning there.
Yeah,
and so that's where you establish these two characters, and they seem to kind of disagree on something. In particular, I don't quite remember what they were disagreeing about.
I don't remember exactly either, and I think they even briefly mentioned it again at some point later in the film, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But you can tell they don't get along, and they're both men of quite a lot of power. A lot of power
and a lot of stature.
Yeah, so it must have been something pretty fundamental.
Maybe, because
they're father and son, right?
They are father and son, and I assume that it was kind of a parallel to Tim and his father, because I think Harry Clifford, the father in that situation, he was the one that really loved Pokemon, because they established that earlier in that movie. and I think his son didn't seem too hot.
Yeah, his
Other than
son
that-
didn't really like Pokemon for
or he didn't
whatever
care about
reason.
Pokemon for some sort of reason,
I mean,
and
if
I-
you're stuck with these things, you got to get used to them, you know?
right? I don't really quite understand why, but the idea is that they're supposed to be a mirror image of Harry and Tim for a purpose that will be explained later in the movie.
It's interesting you brought that up because I didn't catch that the first time around, and it
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense now that.
Because they were kind of arguing with each other about something. I think it was over Pokemon.
Yeah, I think it was too.
Mhm.
That really does make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow he ended up with the information about this like underground club.
Oh, because she had a lead.
She had the lead. She took him to her quote unquote office where
It's a storage closet.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
this is our studio, right? It's our garage.
Oh, okay. You want to lift the veil on that?
Oh yeah, this is our garage, guys.
You
Ooh.
should just like push the camera out further and further. And then reveal. Oh shit! The illusion has been
The
broken.
illusion's gone. But no, I thought the underground fight scene, it was like, underground Pokemon battling because it's outlawed in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure this
Oh,
Pokemon died.
No. The lead was there was supposed to be this guy in like the docks or something, because he knew something about the chemical R.
Oh, was
and
this
so
where they found Mr. Mime?
That's where the Mr. Mime scene starts, and that was the highlight of the movie.
That was really good.
Yeah.
That was so clever because like they find a Mr. Mime.
Mm-hmm. Just
And-
kind of coming out of this warehouse, and they were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" This Mr. Mime. Oh man.
And he doesn't talk. He mimes to communicate
Mm-hmm.
for the whole movie,
Mm-hmm.
or like for the whole scene. Everything that comes on from that point, and he has to like play this game of charades
Mm-hmm.
with Mr. Mime to figure out where he's going. He's like pretending to be on a motorcycle.
Pretending to crash on the motorcycle.
Yeah, because Tim pretended he jumped in front of him, pretended to have a barrier, and he's just like, oh,
And he just like slowly falls over
He's-
dramatically.
oh, he's going down hard, Tim. Oh,
Mhm. He
should've
should
worn a
he should wear a
helmet.
helmet. Yeah. Like what helmet? It's completely invisible. But I guess Mr. Mime can actually make these things tangible, even though we can't see them. Because you have that later scene where Pikachu tries to tackle Mr. Mime, and then he just puts up a barrier.
he's just like, nope,
Mhm.
barrier.
This whole interrogation scene, which was actually really good.
It was really good, and like the whole time, it's Pikachu's like trying to gruffly get these answers out of him, and Tim realizes, oh, I gotta like outmime him. I gotta
Yeah.
outthink him,
Mm-hmm.
and he
And so he plays out this sword torture scenario,
yeah.
which is crazy.
He like
just
claims
like,
he like uses the wall that Pikachu crashed into. He pretends it's a door, and he
pretends
just
it's the door,
opens
and
it up.
opens the door, and Mr. Mime's like, "What the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, you can't do that.
Like, no, what? I had no idea you could do that."
And then he's like pouring this make believe gas on him, and Pikachu's trying to guess.
Mhm.
He has no idea.
Mhm. Pikachu has no clue. Mr. Mime seems smart enough to understand Tim, but simultaneously not smart enough to figure that Tim could probably just do the same thing he does.
Yeah. His solution was pour Mr. Mime in gas,
Mm-hmm.
light him on fire,
Mm-hmm.
imaginarily,
Maybe.
or allegedly.
We don't know. It just cuts before anything happens.
For all we know, he's up in smoke.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was really funny. But Pokemon don't die; they faint. So if anything, they just fainted it and got it out of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with that one.
Mm-hmm.
But so that that was so great. Mr.
Mhm.
Mime is creepy in general,
A little creepy.
but they managed to make him easily, as you said, one of the highlights of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I never would have expected that from.
I think it's lessened just from the sheer outrageousness of that scene.
Yeah, for real.
Cause God, oh my God, I wasn't really too into the whole Mr. Mime thing when they showed it in the trailers, because I was
Not
just
at
like,
all.
why is this like really smooth face? Why does he have shoulders like dodgeballs? Like I don't really get the whole thing, and I thought that was just gonna be like the whole. I thought that was just gonna be it as far as that scene goes, because
Mhm.
usually trailers for some movies just kind of spoil the best bits.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
they spoil the best jokes sometimes. So I thought that was going to be it. But no, it was really expanded in the actual movie, and I really liked that part.
I did too. Props to whoever had that idea of like
Mhm.
miming their way through, because that I would probably say is one of the best, if not the best part,
Oh yeah.
most creative part of the movie here. But so they end up somehow getting into this like underground arena because Pokemon battles are apparently outlawed in the city because they're supposed to be living with the Pokemon, and like of course the guy who owns the place is the one who has the information, and he's chilling with a Charizard, a very tall Charizard at that. Charizard's supposed to be 4'11". Not this Charizard. This Charizard's like easily 7 feet tall.
This movie's rather inconsistent with the sizes of certain Pokemon because Snorlax seems a lot smaller than it should be.
Snorlax seemed very small, and I thought Machamp would be a little taller. Not by too much, maybe a foot.
I figured Machamp is like about the right size, human size. I thought Snorlax would be a lot bigger.
Yeah, Snorlax was not. How was that thing blocking roads? What have we been doing with our life?
Right? I would figure he'd just like take up the entire intersection.
Exactly. Snorlax would block a four-way stop.
Yeah.
But no, he's not. And so this Charizard's like massively huge. And he looks at the guy and his Charizard look at this Pikachu, and he's like, oh.
I need to get revenge on you.
Yeah, you hurt my Charizard last time, blah, 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 blah. And he's just going off on them. We need to have a rematch. And Pikachu's just like all about it. He's just like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do it. He jumps in this. They do a cage match. Jumps in this cage match, only to find out he can't use his electrical attacks.
Still can't use it.
What was he thinking?
It's very interesting to see that entire scene because I felt like that was more of a callback to the games more than anything else.
That Pikachu would have a type advantage.
No, just the whole battling thing.
Oh yeah,
because you had because the whole scene started with was it Blastoise battling Gengar. Yeah, and then they had the whole thing where he used Shadow Ball and they used Double Team, and then Blastoise did like I don't know, like Hydro Pump type of thing.
He like spun around his shell and just was like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, essentially. And that's supposed to be like, okay, what if Pokemon battling was in real life? It's that sort of fan servicey type of thing.
It was cool, but it was just so short. At least that initial battle was so short. And then that when they kind of were like, oh, Pikachu can't use his electric attacks, I was like, oh, this isn't going to be a battle. This is going to be slaughter.
And also I think it further established like the consequences of the chemical because the guy had like a bunch of
that's right,
vials,
he did give it to Charizard right
and he
before.
gave it to his own Charizard as like a sort of performance enhancement.
Remember in the games how they have like calcium, zinc, you can give them those X attacks in the middle of a match.
That's probably it, actually.
That's exactly what he did. He was cheating in the match.
Yeah, essentially.
Go get him.
And then just things go wrong from there because, Pikachu can't really do anything, so it's up to Tim to step up. And just everything got chaotic.
Let's come right back to that. Let's cut. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back where we're going to continue our discussion. Stay tuned. Welcome back to part 3 of our Detective Pikachu review here on the Slacking Off Show. Still joined by Mr. JP Gomez, and where we left off a minute ago was about the fight scene that was about to induce between Detective Pikachu and this steroid-induced Charizard.
At a certain point, it becomes like everybody because, there was a whole incident with the chemicals, and then all the Pokemon go crazy.
Yeah, it's true. And, Charizard goes mad, and I thought it was really interesting how Tim protects Pikachu is by just jumping in the ring. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to jump in and face this freaking dragon. And Kid's got some balls.
Yeah, and I thought that was a really curious type of character development because initially he was like, I don't even like Pokemon at all. But then at a certain point, he decides to actually jump into the ring with this freaking dragon.
It's terrifying.
This fire-burning thing.
Charizard's one of the highlights. It looked super cool. Super cool. And it's terrifying. If I woke up and saw it staring down at me, I'd piss myself.
Yeah, just imagine him snarling at you, but he actually means well. Yeah, just imagine, like, that's its nature. In general, it just looks at you and like, good morning, while it's snarling at you.
Well, you see the funny kind of expression because he looks menacing throughout this entire movie.
Okay.
Up until Well, you know what point I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
But Tim kind of steps up, starts protecting Pikachu in the battle, and yeah, all the Pokemon start going nuts because of the chemical. I forgot how it got released.
I think the guy like got stepped on, or like his jacket got stepped on because he had all the vials in his jacket or something like that.
I think it was something along. It was really quick.
Yeah, it was a very quick type of thing, and like after that, it just showed like all of it just kind of exploded, and then the whole mist thing kind of possessed all these Pokemon.
And he had a Magikarp in a tank. That like
with
all the Pokemon going crazy, the Magikarp broke out of the tank, which Magikarp looked really good too. And there's Tim, Pikachu, Charizard, and now this Magikarp are just chilling in this ring, and Magikarp's flopping around doing what Magikarp does, and Pikachu just like throws Magikarp at Charizard. He's like, "Go get him!" And Tim's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Magikarp evolves into Gyarados. He just needs some motivation," and just sits there. With Magikarp just flopping around.
As Magikarp does.
Which I just thought it was a surprising piece of comic relief. And then, Charizard starts charging at him. And Magikarp does evolve and save their ass by turning into Gyarados, which, if for those of you who don't know Pokemon, it's this big blue, like, Chinese sea dragon. It's massive. It's terrifying. And it just stares down at Charizard, and you see it put on this whimpering face. I thought that was pretty funny, because up until then, Charizard just looks terrifying. And then it kind of looked like a dog. It was just like...
It did kind of look a little doggish during that point.
Just blast him away. And that's how they get out. Gyarados, like, uses Hydro Pump, washes them away, and then they're able to escape from there. And then I think he, like, rendezvous with her. At this coffee shop.
He got caught by the police because, it was an underground ring. So.
Yeah, that was it. He did get caught.
Also, there was just like the whole chaos of Pokemon running wild, so you'd figure the police would show up for that.
Yeah, probably. Hopefully. Allegedly. In a city like this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's right. They get caught by the police.
So, I thought at that... Okay, so like the movie was like really good at that point. Or at least I thought it was pretty good, because you had Ryan Reynolds just kind of like making quips at everything,
and he's funny.
He's pretty good at it, which is surprising, because most everyone just kind of had hesitations towards him playing as Pikachu, as like this wisecracking Pikachu, but it worked out pretty well to just kind of like make fun of all these things happening, like all these crazy things happening, like the guy who had a Charizard didn't have a shirt on for some reason.
And he has a cool Charizard tattoo on him, though.
Okay, yeah.
I did notice that.
But Pikachu's like, why aren't you wearing a shirt?
Yeah, he's making all these dumb quips throughout the whole movie. It's like appropriate Deadpool quips. Age-appropriate Deadpool quips.
Yeah, and, his whole characteristic about him being addicted to coffee, and then pointing out the whole like sort of love interest between Tim and Lucy.
Oh yeah. He does just kind of like start teasing. He's like, "Yo, so you going to her office?" And like you see these expressions on Pikachu and whatnot. Some surprisingly adult jokes that are implied there, especially for like a Pokemon Nintendo movie. But I would say at this point, I was like kind of like you. I was really into the movie, and I think this is kind of where they started to lose me.
See, that's what I was about to say, because at this point I was having a pretty good time seeing all these Pokemon do things that are very Pokemon things, but they're Pokemon things that make sense a lot of the time, or at least to me they did. But then at that point in the movie, after the whole underground ring scene, is when the movie was like, oh yeah, we have an actual plot.
We need to get back to that.
Because it's sort of that plot sort of took a back seat to that sort of thing, like during the whole during the scene prior. And that's something that I've noticed about this movie, is that it kind of establishes sort of certain plot points, and then just says that it's kind of important, and then at certain points it just kind of like pushes all these things to the side and just be like, hey, check out this cool Pokemon thing.
Yeah. And it's almost like at this point, the whole finding your father plot is backseated to this other subplot.
The whole finding your father plot and like Tim's character development, like I was saying before, that kind of took a backseat in when Pikachu came into the picture, and just the big plot in general took a backseat when the whole fighting thing, the whole Pokemon battling thing came into the picture. So when they started getting into a plot, that's when I started to notice the movie didn't seem so good. Not only that, because like I don't want to nitpick. I'm trying not to nitpick at that sort of thing, but I can't help it because you at one point you just see Pokemon everywhere.
Literally.
They're all over every shot of the movie. And then afterwards they dialed that back. Because as soon as the plot starts to kick in, you don't see as many Pokemon. You see maybe one of them or two of them in the shot, and it's mostly Pikachu.
And I would say that's probably due to budget restraints, as I'm sure you and I have concluded.
Oh, yeah.
But the ones that we did get, like the shots kind of going forward, I would say they were really detailed, though. They didn't include as many. There were a couple of exceptions, but they looked really cool. But I do agree with you. Man, I really wish we had seen a lot more, because I don't even think we even see that many different kinds of Pokemon at this point.
I mean,
like species.
I mean, at a certain point, that's when you start to see different Pokemon coming into the picture, because it's like a lot beforehand was a lot of Apom, Charizards, and like Trico and that sort of thing. That's when you start to see, I guess, supporting characters like Greninja and Torterra coming into the picture. But they didn't come in until later on. I'm talking about like how even those elements don't seem as important as the plot at that point. Whereas in the first half of the movie, it was kind of the other way around.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's almost like they were just like, oh yeah, that's right.
This by the way, this is a movie. We need to actually like get to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we have a story to tell that people paid for. When really we probably just paid for it to see what everything looked like in live action.
Yeah, and I think they kind of knew that going into it, but I think it didn't really work for like the overall movie.
Yeah, no.
Because when you get to, like, I guess you could say the second act, when they go into the lab, and
that's
get chased by the Greninja, that was a pretty decent like PG horror themed kind of sequence, because you had the Greninja like slowly coming out, and then you have like the whole scene where it's like goop coming out from the floor, and then you pan up. Usually in most horror movies it's like blood or something like that, but it's like saliva coming from a Greninja's tongue,
which is kind of funny, kind of a neat detail.
It was a pretty effective horror movie kind of sequence.
It's a nice callback to Licky Tongue, because we've established the saliva came from a tongue, and Greninja wears its tongue as a scarf.
From this gross Pokemon tongue. It's like Pokemon seem to generally generate a lot of saliva.
Tons of it. How else are they going to use water gun?
Like, I don't know. It's actually really gross now.
Yeah.
Now as you brought up.
Hydro pump, just piles of it.
They just regurgitate. That's actually really gross.
Keep hydrated. But no, like I don't even remember what the reason was that they got to the lab, and it's not really that important. But they're in this lab, and you see like you find out that this company's been doing experiments on Pokemon. We know it's the same company that the journalist guy, Clifford.
No, are you talking about Harry? Oh, Clifford. Yeah.
Clifford and his son, the guy that we never could remember his name, were running. And I remember they made this one comment that I thought was really interesting, is that when they passed the Greninja that you were talking about, Lucy said something along the lines of like, these Greninja don't look right. But I was like, well, we haven't seen a regular Greninja. So how do we know?
I saw maybe one Greninja, but it was like on the corner of like a really wide shot.
And I thought about it, and I think I remember that, but that wasn't enough.
That wasn't really good enough to establish what a normal Greninja looks like.
Especially when people might not know.
Which is ironic, because they established what a normal Torterra looks like.
Yeah,
just to show that, okay, what these experiments that they did on these Torterra worked way too well later on.
Let's do more of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Although that sort of plot point, I felt like kind of it didn't really go anywhere because like the whole point of the main villain, who is it's a, I don't want to say it's Harry because that's the name of
I think it was like
the
Clifford.
dad. I think it was like Henry Clifford or something like that. Anyway, because the whole motivation of the that character, he established that his idea was to, I I guess in his own words, evolve people into something better. Howard Clifford. Okay. And like he established his motivation at that point.
His son's name was Roger Clifford.
Roger Clifford. Okay. So Howard Clifford, he established that his motivations were to evolve people into something beyond. And that was, and I noticed that was mostly motivated by the fact that he was in a wheelchair. So he was disabled, and so he probably just thought that he probably just felt insecure and felt like he needed to, push this sort of thing. So trying to get these like Pokemon to become more aggressive and to become giant kind of felt like irrelevant to that sort of point.
It really did, and I think they sort of established at one point because they had Mewtwo in captivity, and they said that they got the chemical from Mewtwo's DNA. And the scene that we thought was like a homage to Pokemon the first movie, the origin of Mewtwo, was actually just a scene where they captured him somehow.
Yeah,
and they just extracted it from his DNA and made the chemical from there. And apparently it just did all these weird things. And apparently Mewtwo's DNA can do everything from make things aggressive to grow exponentially bigger. We don't. It's not really established.
I guess that's supposed to be. I guess that's supposed to be the effects of the chemical.
Something like that.
But like, here's the thing about the villain's motivations is that it was actually not that at all, because we learned later on it was just him trying to get into the mind of Mewtwo, and then him trying to subsequently turn people into Pokemon using the chemical,
and he called it Ascension.
Yeah, and like the whole thing of just trying to like make Torterra grow, that just seems like kind of like some boring supervillain type shit.
Well, let's talk about what we've talked about Torterra a lot. Okay, so Torterra is like this like 4 foot, maybe 3 foot-ish turtle with like a tree growing on its back. It's maybe about this tall. I don't know if that actually shows up on camera, but it's not too much bigger than average human standing up.
The average human size, yeah.
But these fucking Torterra that they encounter are entire forests. Like they're literally forests, and they're causing earthquakes just by getting up. And I was like, what? When you see like this earthquake in the ground rising, I was like, either they're doing these giant ass Torterra or Mewtwo appeared and he is putting in some work.
Yeah, I think the idea is that the chemical is the direct cause. So
what kind of perplexed me is not only are these things just unnaturally big, they're size of skyscrapers, bigger than that. You know, like I said, entire forests.
Like there's 3 or 4 of them, and they could take up 4, and collectively they could take up the size of a whole country.
Yeah, like how does nobody notice that? That these fucking that's 4 forests appeared out of nowhere, and they just got up.
And they didn't even do anything. They just got up. It's like they just were sleeping for a long time.
What if they pooped? Was like,
huh? What? Yeah. What if they pooped?
This poop is gonna be. What are they gonna eat?
Yeah.
They're. I guess they photosynthesize. That's not the point. Like they're just. Oh god, they're just so unnaturally big. What if you dropped a Pokeball? Like right there, just. Oh shit! I just caught like an entire forest.
You accidentally catch a Torterra.
Use that in battle and see if anybody can beat you then.
Yeah, you probably win.
Hey kid, you want to be a Pokemon master?
Actually, no. You probably wouldn't win because all you need is just anything with Ice Beam.
It doesn't matter how big you are, harder you'll fall.
Yeah, basically.
Fucking winter's coming.
That's a scene that I'm just kind of conflicted on because. Okay, so like Turtwig is one of my favorite starters.
Is he really? I didn't know that. Okay.
It's been one of my favorite starters since like
that line is, with the exception of Grottle, I really like that line too.
Grottle, yeah, whatever. But Torterra, I thought most depictions were kind of underwhelming. Like it's just smaller than I imagined it would be. And it's funny that this movie depicts Torterra in like more or less the size that I imagined it would be.
This
This giant kaiju-sized monster.
And you know what? I knew this going into the movie, but Torterra's species name is the continent Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, that's fucking fitting.
Yeah.
You know, I think Groudon's the other one that's the continent Pokemon.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
I was like, oh, that's... And I was like, okay, they did their homework.
Yeah.
Because that makes too much sense.
And it fulfills like an imagination that I've had for forever. However, it contributes to nothing.
Absolutely
I
nothing.
felt.
It was just cool.
It was just cool, and it created a lot of drama that it felt was completely unnecessary. However cool it was.
They needed just an excuse to get Pikachu injured.
Yeah, there was like some weird excuse to get Pikachu injured. I guess because it's like as soon as they get up, they just cause like some sort of tectonic plate shift and then just cause rocks to fall.
They use earthquake by getting up.
Yeah, and then like a bunch of rocks fall.
I don't know if you knew this, but when I was like 7, there was this hole in the wall bookstore I used to go to where they would sell like Pokemon comic books that followed the adventures of Red. It was called Pokemon Adventures. I forgot the name.
Oh, I've heard about that. Yeah.
And there was, I had it somewhere in my parents' house years ago. There was a comic where he was in this forest with his Pikachu and shit, and somehow they awakened this like 10,000-year-old Venusaur that's about the size of these Torterra with like this giant tree on its back. This thing is a monster. And when I saw the Torterra, or I saw the thing move, I was like, are they doing the Venusaur? I was like, they dug real deep if they knew about this and just decided to make it a Torterra for this movie, because I was like, I don't even know how I know about this, but it was a thing, and it was really cool back in the day. It was like this old rooted Venusaur, really neat design. But I was like, if that was kind of like a callback to this old comic series, it really just reinforced that they did their homework on this, which I thought was really cool. I didn't know if you
maybe they did
know this.
Maybe they did. I think it was just mostly like, I mean, he's supposed to be like kind of the world tree or the world turtle mythology. So why shouldn't it be as big as that?
Why can't it be this massive freaking continent? And yeah, no, it was cool, but it didn't do anything at all, as you said. It just injured Pikachu, which led it.
I thought it was funny because it's like you have all these big rocks, and I think what hit him was like a pebble or something like that. It was
something stupid.
It just hit him, and it was just like really quick. It just happened really quick, and I was just like, what hit him?
Well, you know, electric's so weak against rock. And one this week, apparently, they can't use electricity. He's super weak against rock. One rock throw. Gone. Smackdown.
Yeah, essentially. They brought the Smackdown on them.
Oh, man. Let's talk a little bit more about where it goes from there in just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Slacking Off's review of Detective Pikachu. I'm still joined by Mr. J.P. Gomez, and we were just talking about this outrageous scene that involved giant Torterras causing an earthquake, injured Pikachu by a little pebble.
And that kind of necessitated for Tim and Mewtwo to meet.
Yeah, but before that, we got these adorable Bulbasaur.
That make like baby noises, apparently.
They were disturbingly cute. Like, apparently it was modeled after bulldogs, is what they used to...
Okay, I can see that.
I can kind of see it too, but I just gotta say, they do show like all 3 of the starters at some point throughout this movie, and Bulbasaur was adorable.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Charmander is like everywhere, and then Squirtle. We had that brief scene that
Squirtle's a firefighter.
Yeah. Okay. It's like, okay, I get the reference.
Firefighters in training. We should have probably more qualified Pokemon.
I'm surprised they weren't wearing glasses.
Yeah, that would have been a great reference. Great callback to the Squirtle Squad. But yeah, no, they're leading it to this healer Pokemon. And were you like racking your brain at that point, trying to figure out who it could be?
See, I thought it was going to be either the Bulbasaur or these mushroom Pokemon. I forget the names, but I know they're from Sun and Moon.
Oh, mushroom. No. I don't remember them.
No, those are different mushroom Pokemon, which again reinforce the fact that these people actually cared about Pokemon, because these are really obscure Pokemon that I don't think I even remember.
I don't remember them.
I know they're from Sun and Moon. I know you don't even remember. I don't even remember the names of these things. I just know that they're a Pokemon that most people don't even care to look at.
Yeah.
Like that's how deep they cut into the reference material.
Yeah, I was sitting there. I was like, I guess they're taking it to a Chansey, because when you say healer Pokemon,
I thought it was gonna be Chansey. I thought it was gonna be an Audino because you see that a couple times.
okay, I could buy that.
I thought it was gonna be like some other grass type,
Some fairy type or
some
something.
fairy type, something. But no, it was Mewtwo.
And I was like, oh, and it crossed my mind. I was like, if it's not like, I don't know. I was thinking if it's not like Chansey or something, it's gonna be Mewtwo, one way or another. You know, because I just because I'm a Mewtwo nerd. I knew that Mewtwo is often portrayed as a villain and he's misunderstood. And I was like, one way or another, he could probably show up and just like fix it. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah.
He just showed up and magical energy beam, recovered.
Yeah, and he uses that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of magical energy beams.
Including explaining the actual plot, actual events of the movie. Like, oh, this didn't actually happen.
Yeah, know? Right?
Like the beginning of the movie, how it played out wasn't what actually happened.
He like teased it a little bit before he got captured again.
Right? Oh,
Didn't he like tease it through some flashback right before he got captured?
he gave Tim some flashbacks using psychic energy, I guess, to explain like, no, this isn't what actually happened to Harry or Pikachu. Yeah. But then he gets captured.
Yeah, then it gets...
And that's when the third act comes in.
This is a weird act. Like, this is definitely where the movie kind of started losing me.
This is where, okay, so like, I guess if you want to call the second act where they kind of stumbled a bit, third act is where they start to trip and fall.
Oh, yeah. And eventually face plant, I would say. But no, the third act is like, so Mewtwo gets captured and fuck. Maybe this is when the alcohol really hit in, because I don't remember... didn't they go back and Pikachu was like, oh, I betrayed you or something? Didn't they like go back to the lab to try and get Mewtwo or something?
No, that was like after, like they had this like hologram stuff as a convenience way to establish what happened in the past.
Barf. Tony Stark's barf technology.
Oh, God. But no, that was when they showed that Pikachu actually sabotaged the equipment, and that's how Mewtwo was able to get out. And then Pikachu was being over dramatic, and he was like, "I can't. I will be betraying you, so that's why I have to leave you." And then that's when the whole Totoro thing happened.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, alcohol definitely kicked in at this point.
But when Mewtwo got captured, I think I don't remember. I think Tim was captured too, or like he had to go with him. Or something like that, or he had to chase after him.
They captured Mewtwo, and like Roger Clifford stares at Tim and Pikachu as they witness Mewtwo getting captured, and he doesn't do anything.
But that's because it wasn't Roger.
That's right. It is because it wasn't Roger.
Because they established earlier in the movie, Ditto can transform into more than just Pokemon.
Transform into people.
Yeah. To do Howard's bidding.
Which is really kind of weird when you think about it. Like,
oh, which part? The transforming or the eyes?
The eyes are hilarious. I thought it was a great callback.
As soon as the woman, I forget. I think it was.
Are you talking about Lucy?
No. Like, you know the like silent woman that like was supposed to be.
Oh yeah, the one with the pink gloves.
It turns out it was actually Ditto the entire time. The moment she took off those glasses to reveal those eyes, I was like, huh, I forgot that Ditto does that.
Yeah. It was kind of funny.
And I couldn't tell if it was like the best part or the worst part of the scene.
It was really weird. I didn't know how to feel about that. But I thought it was really cool how they hid that the whole movie with the glasses.
The glasses, yeah.
You know, that was really cool. But man, yeah, Ditto's behind a lot lot of it.
Yeah.
But where did they go after they catch me? Didn't
they went to Clifford's I guess office.
That's right, because he was supposed. Howard
That's where he
Clifford.
puts on the freaking. Oh yeah, because Tim went to Clifford or Howard Clifford to tell him about what just happened. That Roger took it, but then he revealed himself to be the bad guy, and then he synced up with Mewtwo's brain.
Clever foreshadowing, just with his office, with behind his desk with the God Pokemon dialogue on the left.
Because that's also one of those things where it's like if you don't know about Pokemon all that well, it will just completely be lost on people. like the fact that he has these 3 god Pokemon behind him. It's
With like Arceus, the actual god of Pokemon, literally behind his desk.
I don't know how non-Pokemon fans would react to that, but as soon as I saw that, I was like, huh, where is this going?
Yeah, I was like, you're clearly not good.
Yeah, you're definitely not good. I guess in terms of foreshadowing, that's, I want to say, a more clever way or a more inspired way of foreshadowing a person's morality.
Yeah, especially if you are a fan. Like, that is one of those nice little Easter eggs they threw in there for, like, if you are a fan, you could pick up on this. But I think a non-Pokemon fan could maybe pick up on it because, you know, it's a common thing for villains to have some sort of deity figure or statue around their...
These or just the whole scene be ominous.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he's a mega corporation CEO and he also has a British accent. Like all these things.
And he's in a wheelchair. Like, everything tells you this dude ain't good.
Checks off every box.
Every box.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so one thing I want to talk about that whole motivation with Howard Clifford and him singing up with Mewtwo. When he talked about, and when he reiterated, trying to evolve man, I guess beyond their limits, and his motivation is to transfer his consciousness onto a Pokemon like Mewtwo. For a brief moment, I thought that was very interesting because it touched upon a sort of transhumanist type of thing, which if you don't know, is kind of in layman's terms like an old science fiction type of theme where it's like humanity and how newer technology affects that, whether it's the humanity of things that are decidedly not human, like cyborgs and all that, and also the humanity of actual humans and whether that's lessened or enhanced through things like cyborg implants and that sort of thing. Like that's something that a lot of science fiction work tends to touch on and tries to have their own takes and answers, including Blade Runner, which is a movie that this particular movie takes a lot of visual inspiration because you have the neon lights and you have these overcrowded cities full of citizens. You have like these food stands and all that stuff was like a very clear inspiration from that movie. And not only that, but also Blade Runner also had some themes of transhumanism because he had because the movie was about replicants, and the question of whether hunting them down is an ethical thing or not, because even though they're supposed to be considered dangerous, who's to say that you can hunt them down like animals because their experiences are just as human as anyone else. So for a brief moment, if you're thinking like I'm thinking, for a brief moment in the movie theater, I was like, this movie might be a lot smarter than I think it would be.
Yeah, I was thinking that for a little minute.
But if you're thinking that, I'm going to have to break it to you.
You're dead wrong.
You're dead wrong, and also this movie completely ignores that part and just goes to... and like the whole process of trying to wear this whole helmet to kind of sync up consciousness to another Pokemon, like that whole process is fast-forwarded because this is where the true effects of the chemical R is put into play, making all these Pokemon angry because, this is the prime point where you can sync up their consciousness to
when they're angry.
When they're angry, even though the villain didn't have to do that, and also Mewtwo didn't really have to do that either.
Not really.
No, because
they had Mewtwo in this bubble thing, and I guess they sprayed it with gas beforehand, and then they were just like, "Oh yeah, Psychic Link."
I guess that's how it works. Even
I would think that Mewtwo's brain with his psychic powers that can speak to people through that.
And then Mewtwo just kind of like waves his hands, and then just an entire group of people and Pokemon are immediately affected by it, which I thought was really stupid.
It was really dumb.
I thought up until that point, Howard Clifford's motivation is to just kind of like get over this whole insecurity about the fact that he's a disabled human,
Mm.
and that I love Pokemon so much. I thought that his whole inspiration was for him to be a Pokemon himself. The idea of trying to assert that sort of thing onto everyone else, trying to insist that
It was random.
it was pretty random, trying to insist that everyone also wanted to be Pokemon just like he was.
Well, it was also stupid because
It's also
he
stupid.
took over Mewtwo. Yeah, you're gonna be in good shape if you're getting put into Mewtwo.
And
everybody else is like fucking Psyducks and Magikarps.
right, like being a Pokemon is not all that cracked up to be when you think
like,
about
I
it.
wouldn't mind being a Machamp.
Yeah, but like, imagine being a Psyduck though. Would you go through that? Just having headaches constantly and having to control that. Would you actually go through that?
No,
No.
I don't. I nor would I want to.
Not to like the movie establishes that Pokemon are pretty cool, but they also have some shit that they have to deal with themselves. Like, okay, there was a brief moment where Pikachu had told to Tim that he wanted to climb onto his back. A, because it's a reference to Ash with his Pikachu, but also because he explained that it's kind of tiring to be on foot all the time because I'm this small rat.
Yeah, he's got little legs there.
He's got little legs, as you can see here. So it's really inconvenient. So it's like, I'm not sure if the trade-off is really worth it, personally.
Not at all. Like,
no.
God. And, somebody out there got swapped out with Magikarp.
Yes, somebody. Maybe the guy
sucks.
who owned that one Magikarp. Although it evolved into a Gyarados.
Yeah,
anyway,
but somebody else did it.
Somebody else. So I thought it was like really stupid. If they had kept it to just him wanting to merge with Mewtwo,
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
that would have been okay.
Or even Ditto.
Or with Ditto, that would have been okay. If he even just wanted to have Mewtwo merge him with a more physically capable Pokemon, if he thought he had to force Mewtwo to do that sort of thing or persuade Mewtwo, that would have been okay. But I think they took a step too far just to kind of force this sort of big, high stakes drama type of thing.
Yeah, and it was to set up this kind of weird Pokemon battle between Detective Pikachu and Mewtwo, which is the most unfair matchup.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
because he barely even he could barely handle a Charizard.
Yeah, and now you're being faced up against
One
Mewtwo.
of the strongest Pokemon ever,
Like
as the movie established.
Factually, or at least in the games, in terms of stats, the strongest Pokemon. Like, you're gonna have a hard time here, little guy.
You know what I thought was funny though? I just realized something. Pikachu and Mewtwo were battling on a bunch of parade floats.
Oh,
Just like Super Smash Brothers.
Oh my gosh, the Pokefloats.
I don't know if
snap.
I don't know if they intended that to be a reference to that, but
that's clever if it was.
Mm-hmm.
If it was
Mm-hmm.
Pokefloats for Smash Ultimate.
That was my whole thing about that was my whole thing about the second half of the movie. It has a lot of references and callbacks that I personally enjoyed. The problem is that they're supporting something that is not very good.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's talk more about the problems in a minute. Let's go on and just wrap up how the story concludes. Where Mewtwo Howard, whatever the hell you want to call him, starts transferring consciousness to all the other people.
Swaths of people.
Yeah, and then, Pikachu learns how to fight and use Volt Tackle and battles Mewtwo in the sky. And basically just distracts him long enough for Tim to just go and pull the conscious thing off of Howard's original body, just chilling in this chair.
That's all it took. I
was like, dude.
You were there this entire time. Like, you saw him do it.
Yeah, or like, even if you want to just be a real douchebag, just like push him out the window. Roll him out the window and just there he goes. All right.
Yeah.
That would have done it. But no, you just pick it right off. Oh, Mewtwo's back to normal. And Mewtwo's like, oh, I can fix everything.
Oh, yeah. And then just like hand wave. Everyone's fixed.
Literally, it's like magic. Oh, I'll fix it all. Boom. Everybody's back to normal.
Like, I guess it's supposed to work because Mewtwo is like super powerful and he does psychic stuff. But I'm pretty sure it's quite a stretch from transferring someone's soul into a Pokemon.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I want to talk about it in the next part. Me being the biggest Mewtwo nerd out there. Some of it lines up, some of it doesn't. But that's gonna take a minute.
Oh,
so
okay. Have we reached the timeline for this segment?
well, we got another like 3 minutes. So
Okay.
let's wrap up like the story portion before we go there. And Mewtwo fixes everybody, and then he's like, "Oh, I got one last thing.
One more thing to take care of."
Yeah, and he separates Pikachu from apparently his dad. They like do this whole flashback. They show the whole flashback where apparently to save his dad's life, he had to merge him with Pikachu. And the whole time, he's talking with his dad.
Did he save his dad's life?
I think that was the idea. I think that was why he merged them together.
Okay.
Was to save his dad's life, he had to merge for reasons.
But like he can just heal people or things by just like using his energy. Because he did it with Pikachu like a couple of minutes ago. He didn't have to do the whole thing where it's just like transfer his entire soul or something like that. I think he said something about humanity.
Oh yeah, humanity was like Mewtwo hates humanity for.
And I guess that's why he transferred the dad's soul into Pikachu.
It's like not all humans are evil.
Not all of humanity is
Become
bad.
a Pikachu.
Yeah. Sure.
I thought it was. Maybe I justified it by saying he was dying and this was the only way.
Mm-hmm.
But he separates him out. Pikachu becomes a normal Pikachu,
Mm-hmm.
and you see his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And who's his dad?
Who is his dad indeed?
It's Ryan Reynolds, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like actually, Ryan Reynolds.
He just shows up in the
real
movie.
life Ryan Reynolds.
He just shows up. He's like, "Hey, I'm your dad."
And that's pretty much how it is. He just they start sending him off home, and Tim decides to.
And like everything's wrapped up at that point.
Yeah,
that's the last minute of the movie.
Yeah, we don't know what happened to Mewtwo. The dude Howard and Roger got arrested or something. Or Howard got arrested. Roger promotes Lucy to being like.
Oh yeah, because she's the one that actually cared about this story more than anyone else.
Yeah, and it's just like that. Rich people promoted.
Yeah,
you know.
There you go.
And Tim is being sent back home, and he just decides to come back.
And he decides to be with his dad because I guess he realized how valuable it is to be with his dad, who loved Pokemon, and how valuable it is to be with Pokemon.
Buddy cop movie with his dad.
Yeah.
Did you like that? Did you see it coming? I personally didn't.
I didn't because I didn't think the movie would handle it that poorly. Because how much time do we have left?
20 seconds. Let's talk about it in the next part.
Okay,
and
fine.
We'll ramp on.
Fine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Slacking Off's Detective Pikachu review. I'm joined by Mr. JP Gomez, and we were just talking about the conclusion. Spoilers. Pikachu's Ryan
spoilers.
Reynolds.
Pikachu's Ryan Reynolds the whole time.
No. Factually,
it's actually
Ryan
Reynolds.
Reynolds.
It's like, holy shit, the twist of the movie is that Pikachu's Ryan Reynolds.
It's so ridiculous.
Okay, so what I was saying before is that I was kind of surprised because I didn't expect the movie to be that stupid with it. So when I saw that twist in the movie, my mind was like, what? Because here's the thing. Tim, I'm not even going to elaborate too much on this. He was with his dad the whole time. Not once did he pick up on his voice.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. Whoa.
The whole time, even if I thought it was his dad, I would have figured the voice was Pikachu's voice.
Right.
Like that's what Pikachu sounds like in like this weird, crazy scenario where someone can just understand what Pokemon say.
Hey,
I
Pikachu,
thought that
you sound a lot like my dad.
Right?
Like,
right?
I mean, I guess they try to get around it by saying, like, I don't think he visited his dad since he was, like, 5, and he's, like, maybe 20 in the movie, 21-ish.
Maybe.
But I think they established he hadn't seen it. But still, your voice, at that age, your voice doesn't change that much. You know? Like, I see what you're saying. I didn't think about that before.
Considering that it's not even that his dad, I don't think I don't even think like even if you've been without your dad that long, your memories of your father would still have that effect on you to the point where you remember his voice and what he looks like.
And
It's not
maybe
like you
his
were.
personality too.
It's not like you were separated from birth from him. It's not like you were orphaned and that you don't remember what your father looked like or sounded like. He knew what his dad looked like and what his dad sounded like since like
He came out with a beard. You know, Pikachu maybe
okay,
grew some scruff.
maybe the beard thing, but like the sound of his voice, I would figure like there would have been at some point where Tim was like, so like you kind of sound familiar.
Yeah, you know, anybody ever tell you sound like Dad?
Like
Your dad's
there
partner,
was
you
no
kinda sound like him,
there was
too.
no scene about that. There was just him freaking out about the fact that he can understand his Pikachu talking. That part I understand because he was just focusing on that particular
But at
situation.
some point, you think he might have gone like, "Hey, you know."
After things have sort of cooled down,
And they deliberately went out of their way to not show who his dad was, because there's that one flashback scene.
Oh yeah, not just the one flashback scene, but like every moment where
You never
it's
see
supposed
his
to
face.
every time it's supposed to explain what happened to his dad or like what his dad was doing. You never see his face. It was always the back of his head.
Surprise!
It's right.
I mean-
This whole time.
So in the moment,
Uh-huh.
I bought it, and I was in the moment I was like,
Yeah, I heard you. You were like, fuck.
yeah, like in the moment, I bought it. Maybe it was the alcohol.
Uh-huh.
It makes movies more enjoyable.
Uh-huh.
I
Oh, it
didn't-
definitely does.
I did not. Had a nice Long Island. I did not see it coming at all,
Uh-huh.
and I thought it was cute.
Uh-huh.
I did feel like at the time it was a nice way to end it.
Uh-huh.
What I didn't like was, looking back on it now, is how ridiculous the whole thing is, and the fact that the mystery of why he could talk to this Pikachu, I didn't really want an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I did, and now that I have one, I don't really want it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was kind of hoping that maybe they'd find his dad, and, you know, Dad would... Fuck, we have a talking Meowth that's never explained. Maybe he could just... Oh, in our family...
I could have sworn there was like a whole episode in the anime where it's like
How Meowth learned to talk.
how Meowth learned to talk, and it was because he wanted to impress this female Meowth.
Yeah.
I think that was the story.
It was something
If
along
I
those lines.
remember. Okay, yeah.
And I don't know. If the movie had reunited Tim with his dad and his dad wasn't Pikachu and he could still like talk to Pikachu for reasons and they never explained it, I could have bought it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would have just been like, that's fine. I don't
Mhm.
expect him to have this answer. But now that I'm looking back on it, I don't really buy it as much,
Mm-hmm.
the answer we get. And I think it's kind of bummed that Pikachu's just a regular Pikachu.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
See, I guess the idea is that he could understand Pikachu because he's understanding his dad.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of like
They
it's
don't even
just
explain that.
I would figure it was just like some sort of mental thing where it's just like Tim hallucinating and just like him reminding of his dad.
Mewtwo said,
But I
bring
thought
me the
that-
boy.
But I thought that was like the joke. Like that's not what actually happened because everyone's just like thinking that he must be crazy, and the whole idea is that no, it's real. This Pikachu is talking, but it's only to Tim, so it's not a hallucination thing either.
Didn't you know Pikachu's an elective in college?
What?
I took Pikachu as an elective. That's how I can understand it.
I took class in Pikachu. In
Yeah.
Pika talk.
Pika P.
Pika.
Pika P equals. And it's just genetic at that point. I don't know. It was ridiculous.
Like I get what you were talking about in that it has a sort of emotional payoff where it's like he meets his dad finally after this whole movie of him trying to find his dad or trying to say goodbye to his dad in the beginning of the movie. Trying to sort of finalize this sort of relationship that he had, however little there was.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of didn't really work because of the logistics of it, because of the fact that I was talking about before. It's Ryan Reynolds' voice. You really can't mistake that voice.
No, and apparently when he went into audition for it, he was like telling Nintendo. He did some interview that you can watch on YouTube. You just look up Ryan Reynolds Detective Pikachu interview, where he says, "Yeah, I went in and I was like, okay, guys, so I want to try this like gruff noir kind of like 1920s detective voice." And they were like, yeah, okay, yeah, we can try that. Or you could just be like Ryan Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
We really want you to be Ryan Reynolds, and that was what they wanted for the whole movie, and I guess that's why, because he was Ryan Reynolds the whole time.
That was one of those marketing decisions that I think didn't work. I think Ryan Reynolds was right on that particular point. Like, even if it was him trying to be gruff, I felt like I could have bought that a lot more.
I could have too.
Because Tim wouldn't have figured out that it was his own dad's voice.
Oh, you sound like Dad. Yeah, no, totally. And I kind of wanted to see that because it does. You get used to it, but it's still Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. It's kind of hard to.
It's hard to mistake that.
Yeah.
Even before Deadpool, you can tell it's Ryan Reynolds when you hear his voice.
But I at the time, I thought it was a fine ending. Rewatching it, maybe not, but I was relatively satisfied when I came out of the theater with it, and I thought it was just really. The credits were also really cool.
Credit scene was really good.
Yeah, there's no like end credit scene or anything. It was just really cool, Pokemon inspired credits. But I mean, would you recommend people go see it in theaters or buy it on?
I can't say that it's bad because I think what it does good is pretty good. It realizes this whole scenario of what if Pokemon actually exist, and it does it in a very convincing way. So I can't say that it's a bad movie. However, you just kind of got how do I even say this? You just kind of have to go into it with the fact that at a certain point, this movie just kind of forgets how to be a movie.
Yeah.
And then when it reminds itself that it's a movie, that's when it becomes worse. So I say, if anything, go into it just kind of for the Pokemon, if nothing else.
Yeah, if you just want to see that, it's cool.
Because I don't know if you want to see it for like any of the characters or anything like that. Because Tim is like the only standout human in this movie.
Yeah, like we had to look up everybody else's name. We couldn't remember.
Yeah, because Howard Clifford is a really obvious villain. Lucy's kind of
forgettable
at like the beginning of the movie, and then by the end of the movie she becomes a sidekick, even though she was the one that was leading this whole investigation the whole time.
Yeah.
And then by the end she just becomes a love interest. So characters are not interesting, story's not good. So I would say, if nothing else, just go see it for the Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say like go out to theaters for it. Don't spend like $14. Matinee this. Maybe wait for Netflix. That sort of thing. I still say it's worth a watch.
I think it's. I would say if you're like a big Pokemon fan, I think you should go watch it because it's not terrible.
No.
And what it does right, it does really right. I think I think it's good enough where if you're a Pokemon fan, you can just have a good time, and I kind of hope it makes enough money and gets relatively decent enough reviews to see them take the franchise into other different directions. Experiment with it a bit more because this was such a surprising take. But I mean, I got to be fair as a critic. It's okay. If you go see it in theaters, I think you'll have fun. I don't think this is one that you should like rush out to go see immediately.
I don't, because we're recording this before Mother's Day, but I imagine a lot of people will be going to Mother's Day for this, at least in the morning, because they'll be bringing their kids with them. Something like that.
They're gonna take them to Mother's Day? Like, what mom's like, yo, let's go see? Well, I guess our generation.
Well, Mother's Day is a Sunday, so
fair enough. Okay.
Mother's Day is a Sunday, and I have seen families go on Sunday mornings to just watch the newest kids thing. So I guess if nothing else, just go see it on Mother's Day. I don't know if that's actually gonna turn out too well because we're recording this beforehand, so maybe we'll see that for its box office earnings. We'll see if that has an effect. But you did say something about like parents being at that sort of generation.
Yeah,
which also
I guess
sense.
We're at that point. A lot of people our age nowadays are kind of
20s to early 30s. Yeah, that sort of thing.
They could easily. This could be a market for them.
It's definitely a market for them. I would say. I've had this thought. I've had this like really hot take in my mind, which is, I would say Detective Pikachu is like the Fast and the Furious of our generation.
I can kind of see it.
I mean, honestly, like if you look at any of those movies, would you care about any of the characters or the plot?
No.
Do the people who really care about Fast and Furious care about that, or do they just care about the sweet ass cars
They just care about the cars and don't let anybody tell you differently.
and just the cool shit that the actors do with the cars, or like the stuntsmen do with the cars?
In this one, it's about the Pokemon.
It's just about seeing all the Pokemon do cool shit.
Yeah,
like
that's really what we all wanted to go see here.
Pretty much, yeah.
This interpretation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so final verdict. Yeah, it's a good time. Go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe hold off on buying that Blu-ray until you've seen it. Matinee price this for sure.
Would you buy the Steelbook?
Maybe.
Okay.
It's a maybe. I'll have to simmer on that.
When I come around in a couple months, probably like September, when they're gonna start doing home video release, I expect to see that.
It might be
somewhere in this place.
Somewhere in this house.
I'm going to look for it.
I gotta. Okay, so I want to address something I just personally want to talk about, which is Mewtwo as a plot device.
Oh, okay. We could talk about that
in this movie. We've given our final verdict. This is just extra talk if you care to see it.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I'm a big Mewtwo nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized Mewtwo could have been, keywords could have been, one of the best plot devices this movie could have asked for, but then they just butcher it in many different ways.
How so?
Well, okay, so, the whole shtick with Mewtwo is he's the man-made Pokemon, right? He hates humans because they betrayed him. They made him to fight for him. Mm-hmm. But what they established in this movie was Mewtwo'd been around for 20 years.
Oh, right.
20 years.
Because there's a brief throwaway line that they put in where it's like Mewtwo escaped from the Kanto region.
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
And my whole shtick here is the reason Mewtwo and all the other media, with the exception of the Genesect movie, was even... He was stupid OP. Mm-hmm. But his whole shtick was he was trying to come to terms with his powers and understand them. Mm-hmm. And as far as I know, I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. Those, like Pokemon the first movie and Return of Mewtwo, are about 2 years after his birth. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense that he was still trying to control his abilities. But after 20 years, I could believe Mewtwo could pull off some of this ridiculous plot-demanding bullshit, like separating souls from bodies under ideal conditions, especially when, in the games, he is stronger than God. Mm-hmm. But...
Depending on which type of god.
Yeah.
Which plate the god's wearing. Anyway, as you were saying.
But instead, they didn't... Instead, he's still getting caught by, like, the robots. The robots that captured him?
Right, the orbs that, like, had this sort of binding thing.
It was a callback to Pokemon Mewtwo Returns, where in order for Giovanni to capture Mewtwo at that point, when he had kind of already started getting control of his powers, it was like a DNA scrambler that would turn him orange in the animated film and, like, essentially start corroding his DNA, and that was weakening him. At least in that movie, it was. And I noticed when these robots that look kind of similar to that hit him, he started turning orange. And I'm like, oh, they're doing that callback. Mm-hmm. But I just also have a hard time believing that the most powerful Pokemon on the planet that can separate souls from bodies after 20 years is getting caught by a current of electricity and can be mind controlled by a dude in a wheelchair. Like, after 20 years, if you can do shit like that with your powers, you should probably be able to have, like, this mental force field and crap all around you. And
he has, like, a physical force field, which the movie showed.
Exactly. So I'm like, I get it that you were created, the theme is, like, you were created by man, and man will always have some control over you. Not after 20 years, son. After 20 years, you should be mega evolving. You should be... You should be doing all this crap, because they even established from the Genesect movie that there are 2 Mewtwo's, one of which has come to accept itself and humanity, and that's what enabled it to Mega Evolve. And that there was this other Mewtwo that never accepted that never got control over it.
This might just be a different continuity.
Might be, but from everything that we've seen, it's like, it's just weird.
Like I get it on the fact that it's been 20 years, so you figure after Mewtwo's creation, like it's mellowed out. It's mellowed out since then. You can see that in the movie. But like, yeah, you figured that he knew how to do some crazy shit beyond just controlling souls.
Yeah, like protect yourself.
Yeah.
If you can shoot healing beams out of your hand, you know, I don't know.
You could have seen that coming, I guess.
Yeah,
We don't know the extent of Mewtwo's abilities.
And that's the thing that makes me kind of buy that he can do this crap, is because in all media at this point in time, they never really show his full extent of his abilities, because he's either always holding himself back or he doesn't have control over his powers. So the original thought of, you after 20 years, yeah, he's got some pretty omnipotent shit, intrigued me, but it also just made it even more unbelievable that he was captured, and apparently his DNA is what allowed them to create this gas that makes everybody go nuts. I'm like, wait, his DNA, after 20 years, you're telling me you guys still don't have a copy of his DNA? Doesn't he poop? Like,
do Pokemon poop at all? I don't think.
Hopefully not. Not with that.
I don't think any movie's ever gonna explain that under Nintendo's supervision.
Probably not. But it's like if Mewtwo was created from the DNA of Mew, like a hair. After 20 years, you're telling me you couldn't find some DNA.
They lost it
in the explosion.
Yeah,
that he created.
They just lost it in the explosion.
It was just really unbelievable to me, but it was really cool seeing him in 3D. That's what I wanted. But I also had a feeling that they were putting him in here specifically to market.
Oh yeah,
the Pokemon First movie remake, and I didn't really want him to be in the movie unless he had a good reason to be in the plot.
But no, there's no good reason. It's Mewtwo's the reason.
Mewtwo's the reason.
Yeah.
So that was just my little rant as a Mewtwo nerd.
Okay.
Over here.
Okay.
This could probably be cut out of the final video,
no,
but I just wanted to have this talk with you.
No, that's all gonna be in.
Very upset at some of the ways that they handled him, but I'm overall just happy he was there because I got to see him in 3D renders.
Yeah. Did seem actually realized in CGI.
Yeah, him and Greninja looked really cool.
They were both appropriately creepy.
Just the right amount of creepy. Because there's some there's some realistic portrayals of artwork of those characters in particular that are astonishingly creepy. And I was like, if they're gonna put Mewtwo in the movie, he would have to be just the right amount.
Right.
And I think they did a good job nailing that. Same goes for Greninja. Did you notice, last thing, did you notice that Greninja's the white part on him was like a bluish gray in the movies?
I assumed that was just a color grading of the movie.
I thought so too. A part of me thought it might also be, those Greninja don't look right. It was just a small detail that I noticed. I was like, oh wait.
I think it would be really hard to tell because, there's the fact that it's very brief, and also, like I said before, it's the color grading because you had that whole scene of the laboratory, but the laboratory is all cool colors, and that's probably even before you get into post-production. Yeah,
you're probably right. It was just a small thing I noticed, and I was like, wait, Greninja, that part of Greninja is typically white.
Okay.
Maybe they were all shinies.
No,
it would have been nice. Oh well.
It would have been nice to see at least one shiny Pokemon CG rendered.
Yeah, it would have. Maybe next time, Detective Pikachu 2, Ryan Reynolds strikes back. This time, Ryan Reynolds is Detective Raichu.
Oh, look forward to that in theaters 2021.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our show. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe. And you can follow us across all social media platforms at Slacking Off Show. We'll see you next time.